Welcome back to the final hour of our all-day marathon, our One Great Day of Giving. We started this morning at 9 a.m. We are going to wrap it up in this final hour. Don't forget, if you still haven't made dinner plans and you want to get out and go to some of the restaurants that are helping us out with a portion of their proceeds, that is Chili's in Milford, that is Pepe's Pizza in Fairfield and Danbury, and it is also Texas Roadhouse in West Haven. So if you go in and mention Scouting, they will give you a portion of the proceeds. If you want to make a donation, we hope that you will. Remember, our goal is to try to support 100 youth. And I started the show this morning by talking about what that actual cost is. And that actual cost is our budget divided by the number of youth that we serve. It comes out to about $500. So we're asking people to consider supporting one youth or more. Remember, we've got a couple things still going on. You have a last-minute chance to get your name in the raffle basket for that basket of goodies that we've got. That's for a $500 donation. If you do the $1,000 donation, you're going to get a pair of Avelo tickets, what I call fully loaded, because it includes your bag fees and any other incidentals, and there's no blackout period, and they're good for a year. And if you're like me, after doing this for 12 hours, you want to go to Puerto Rico and take a vacation. So I might be pledging 1,000 myself at this point. You never know. So this segment's going to be a little different. I've got 4 of my board members up here with me, and I'll introduce them here in a bit. But I want to talk about some of our special events and other ways that we raise money. So we talked about this, obviously, as our kickoff to try to kick off our fundraising year. But we've got some events coming up that, if you're not familiar with them, we can certainly make sure you get the information. If you get our newsletter, our trail notes that goes out every other Tuesday, we normally put these in there, and hopefully you'll want to participate in some of those. We have our leadership dinner, which is coming up on May 16th. Our speaker this year is Monty Gibson. Monty is the strength and conditioning coach for the Cleveland Browns. He's also a National Distinguished Eagle Scout, has a tremendous story, and it's a great event. Last year we had Joe Theismann, and just turned out to be a good event to talk about scouting and what we do, and to hear those folks' stories as well. We have a new event coming up in June. We're going to do a Pro-Am golf outing. The Pro-Am format is 3 amateurs and a local PGA pro. We're pairing with the PGA of Connecticut, and it's going to be an amazing tournament. If you've never played in a Pro-Am, you're going to want to make sure you sign up for this. It's going to be an absolute blast. Details on both of those events will be coming out in the near future. We're also going to be having our 3rd annual Women in Leadership Luncheon that'll be happening in the fall. This is where we honor women in the community that are making a difference in the lives of youth. That's always been a great event. We do that down at Country Club in New Canaan. And then we're going to have our Sporting Clays event back this year. We weren't able to have Sporting Clays last year. If you don't know what Sporting Clays is, I call it golf with guns. And you go around and shoot 15 stations of clays. And if you're like me and you only shoot maybe once or twice a year, you don't do very well at it. But it's a lot of fun. And so there's a lot of information that will be coming out about some of these events. We've got others that will be happening throughout the course of the year. Again, if you're not on our mailing list, I don't know why. We have 14,000 people on the mailing list, so you'd think we'd have everybody underneath the sun on there. But if you're not on the mailing list, contact the office and get on the mailing list, because we do a newsletter called Trail Notes every other week that has all the details of everything that's happening in the program. So at this point, I'm going to deviate, and I want to thank a couple of people for the work that they did to put this together. They were here last night, I heard, until 3 o'clock this morning. And they've been here since 7:30 this morning, and they've been here all day. And if you were here to see this setup, it looks like you're in a TV studio. So Jason Van Leeuwen, thank you very much for all the work that you put into this. Round of applause for Jason.
Thank you.
Jeff Kazakis, thank you. You've been here all day. Thank you very much for helping with the soundboard. Dylan Hogan, thank you very much for all the work you've done in getting us out on all the social media stuff. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Dylan.
Special thank you to Karen Coyote, who literally slept here all night last night.
Literally.
In her office. She's been working the phones and helping with everything. So thank you for everything you've done today. Also, thank you to Karina Waring for pushing out our stuff on social media as well and giving all the updates. And thanks to all the staff. You met some of our staff today. You didn't meet all the staff today. We have a couple of the staff members here with us right now that you didn't get to meet, Mark Kennedy and Bill Reynolds, who are a couple of our district executives. But you got a chance to meet Eric Brantley, who was on a couple segments today, and you got a chance to meet Paul Lucas as well. So it's been a phenomenal day. This was kind of an idea that I stole from my high school. They don't quite go to this extent. This has almost turned into like the Jerry Lewis telethon, and I feel like probably Jerry Lewis did at the end of the day. I'm a little worn out, but I got to tell you, it's been amazing. And I hope you got something out of these segments. I hope maybe you learned something about scouting and about the council that you didn't know. And that's really what the whole reasoning behind this was, as well as trying to raise some money. So if you want to make a gift, don't forget, dial in. Karen is still sitting by the phones. 203-951-9321, or go on the website or go on to the Facebook post, and you can hit the Donate Now button. And remember, the Avello tickets are still in play. We have several sets of those to give away at the $1,000 level, or you can be part of that $500 gift basket. So I'm going to introduce my board members, and we're just going to have a conversation about the council, because scouting has been through a tremendous amount of change really since 2013. And these last 11 years have probably been the craziest in my career. And I started in scouting back in 1990, so I've been around this quite a while. But probably for us locally as a council, the last few years has been an added challenge, not only with COVID, but with the bankruptcy and with selling properties and all of those things that made several of us, including myself, highly unpopular. But we had to make some really, really difficult decisions, and they were the right choices to continue to move the council forward. So at the end, we have Jim Accomando, who is our council president. Nick Mirabelli, who I mispronounced that. Mirabelli. Sorry, Nick.
It's all right.
It's been a long day. Who's one of our board members, Bob Brown, who is our VP of Marketing. And then, what's your name? Oh, Gene Waring, yeah. Gene Waring, who is our council commissioner. If you're not aware what a commissioner is, the commissioning staff is the front line that works with the units to support the units to make sure that they're getting the service that they need to provide a strong program to the units. And Gene actually has a team of commissioners that work with him at the district level and also at the unit level to help provide those services. So welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Let's just talk about your views on what's happened in the last couple of years with the council. Jim?
So first, I'd like to acknowledge that you said thank you to the staff and the crew, but I want to say thank you to you, Mark. You've done a great job. I've watched every segment except for one, but I know they're taped, and I'll get to watch that one. And you did a fantastic job.
Thank you very much.
So thank you for putting
It's been a lot of
together.
fun,
I know this
actually.
was your
Yeah.
idea,
Yeah.
and we're all going, okay, let's give it a shot, give you as much room as possible. But I think it's going to work out great, especially because it's got a lot of hang time
It does.
on Facebook, and we can send this out in trail notes like you had mentioned, and people can donate. The window is wide open,
window
if
is
you will.
wide
It's
open,
not just
exactly.
today of a day of giving. It's a year of giving.
Right.
It's complete giving.
Right.
But thank you for the question. We went through a lot of challenges over the last, as you mentioned, a decade at least. And one of the things that you can do instinctually when you are overcome by this wave or this influx of all of this adversity is to kind of shrink to fit, circle the wagons, and really kind of back off. And one of the aspects that is great about our council, great about our board and our key three and our staff, is that we looked at adversity in the eye and said, no, we're going to invest to grow. We're going to actually turn this upside down on its head, and we're actually going to take advantage of this opportunity as a rebirth, coming out of bankruptcy, coming out of all these issues, coming out of image problems, and really just explode out of this in a very positive way. And we can get into some of those aspects a little more detail later, but I will tell you that's been our inner strength as our people, our ability to overcome, and our initiative to move forward as a knee-jerk reaction to all of this adversity.
Nick, you're the new kid on the block with this group. So what are your thoughts since you've been involved?
Thank you, Mark, as well for having me here. And I agree. I love this format. I love the analogy to the Jerry Lewis Telethon. I think this is a wonderful way to launch a day of giving and really set us up for the year. I'm happy to be here. I am new to the board. I've been in scouting my whole life. Was a scout out in Las Vegas, a troop there, I was a troop in D.C., and then my son was at a troop here in Connecticut. He went off to college. I decided to kind of give back and participate in scouting again. So jumped in, joined the ruckus of COVID and bankruptcy. So it was a little bit of culture shock. But I'm happy to see us rebound. I'm happy to be part of the rebranding. I'm happy that we've got women involved in scouting. And I think it's a great place for us right now.
Bob, you've been around for a while. You're kind of the young guy on the set right now.
Yeah.
So you come from you actually grew up in this council and got your eagle from this council. So tell us a little bit your thoughts in the last few years.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. It's been interesting to see how scouting's evolved so much, even just in the last 4 years. I mean, like you said, it's been 10, 12 years of transformation since scouting turned 100 here. But since COVID, we've really evolved so much. And just looking at these sorts of virtual events that we've pulled off, I mean, we had to pivot really quickly during COVID to make some of these happen. And it's really been great to see how volunteers and staff come together to be creative and come up with these wild ideas. I mean, I have the privilege of serving on a few national committees, and I don't think there's any other council in the country that does something like this. And that's a testament to how we all work together and get things done. But seeing how diverse scouting has gotten, and getting to work with local units, with Kids in the Order of the Arrow, seeing how we've welcomed young women in, and they've been adopted and integrated fully. There's no difference between the experience a young boy and a young girl has in this program, and that's a testament to the people here.
Right.
I mean, we welcome them so much, and we've seen our first female Eagle Scouts come through. We've seen them get involved at all the levels and in the program, and that's been heartening to see. We now serve every single young person in the communities that we serve in this council.
Exactly. And there's no barriers any longer.
Right.
We'll talk about this in a minute about the council really, as Jim said, we invest to grow, but sometimes that investment has a price tag on it that sometimes we as an organization, the board leading this, really are putting ourselves out there for some of this. So, Gene, you've been involved for a long time at the unit level and district level, and now as council commissioner. So how's the last few years?
Well, it's been real interesting, and one of the things, and probably the reason why I stay on board, my son eagled out in 2014, and I stayed on board as a scoutmaster, then committee member, and then got more involved with the district level, and then you invited me to be commissioner staff. But the one thing I picked up on over the years is that our council is growing in the right direction. We are offering scouts every opportunity to be outdoors. Our camps are phenomenal. They get better and better every year. Places we go camping in our council are tremendous. Hoyt, Sequoia, and even Wawatesi, that's out by Quinnipiac, is a great location. But what I've seen is the growth of scouting where more kids are getting involved, developing skills that are lifelong skills. The number of eagles that have grown, and even for my own troop, was amazing, and that I'm so proud of them all. And I always tell this story to new parents that come on board. I see your, and I'm talking at the scout level, the BSA scout level, they come on as a young scout, maybe 10 and a half, 11, depending on if they were a Weeblo or not. And they're kids. They're goofy, they have fun, they're learning all the time. But then when you sit on their Eagle Board of Review at 16, 17, 18-year-old, and you look at them and you say, where did that come from? They grow up so well, and they're young men and young women now, and they're ready to take on the world. And that is, to me, has been the positive growth of our council.
Yeah. So when I got here in August of 2020, smack dab in the middle of COVID, which was an interesting time, our membership as a council was fluttering around 5,500, and it had been nationally, membership had been going down really since the mid-'70s. And part of what we talked about was with the Invest to Grow was thinking, Okay, we want to grow traditional membership. What everybody thinks of as traditional is they see the kids go into the church basement on Tuesday night and go to their scout meeting in their uniform. And we want that to grow, but all these other segments, the inner city population, the Hispanic population, all of these areas, the teenagers that weren't involved in scouting and maybe bring them in to be part of the exploring program or whatever it might be, that's where really we kind of did a pivot and said, if we're really going to grow and we're really going to talk about serving all youth, we're going to have to bite the bullet. We're going to have to do this. So talk about your perspectives on that.
Yeah, so a couple of takeaways from what we talked about here. You know, when we are measured against total available youth, for the first time ever, we can actually say we are targeting all youth, the total available youth within our footprint. And that's great. And our complete success, I would say, is our ability to reach and recruit in what I would call non-traditional markets. So as you said, if you looked at traditional markets as the scouting I grew up in, my son grew up in, I've got my Eagle badge, my son has his. The approach that we're taking now is making sure that it's an outreach to all youth within our community, whether they're a traditional family, non-traditional family, where they're in markets that we used to be in and no longer in, et cetera. Whatever that is, we're really inclusive of everybody here. So through Scoutreach, we've had tremendous success in New Haven and Bridgeport now, of actually through the school system, reaching youth that we really haven't been able to communicate with and bring on board with our program. And think about our program. It's really a pathway of preparation for youth for life. And who wouldn't want that from a family member to bring their youth involved? As we look at our diverse populations throughout our footprint, we're able to do outreach in Hispanic communities. We are able to really communicate to a lot of folks. And when you look at the way Scouts is structured with its programming, we've got programs that are standalone for family scouting through Cub Scouts. We have Scouts BSA now. We have got girl troops and boy troops. Hopefully someday that becomes a co-ed aspect. And you've got a lot of youth programs through Venturing and Sea Scouts and Exploring, and you got Explorer Post and Explorer Clubs. Thank you for the younger folks. And if you look at that platform, you can really dust off a lot of those aspects and say, wow, we can partner and sponsor up with maritime groups and build incredible coalitions with a maritime segment. You had mentioned earlier in your segments the Mosaic out of Bridgeport, that community. When we do other initiatives where we partner up in, we can actually, the aviation segment that we have out of East Haven is a very successful middle school exploring program. So, and as we endeavor through different manufacturers, sponsors, partners, et cetera, we can build programming that's within our scouting family and grow. So while our recruiting methods may seem to others as non-traditional, our programming is very traditional in the sense of how we build this consortium and bring kids through the whole aspect of preparing them for life. So Connecticut Yankee Council, just add a couple other quick points to it. I don't have the stats on the top of my head, but I'm willing to bet of the 8,600 kids, probably 40% diverse as far as inclusion.
Oh, absolutely.
At least. And then the nice aspect about that, Mark, and as you all know, those youth come with caregivers, parents, family members, community members that want to be part of the program as well. So they become our volunteer base. And as you get more engaged in scouting, they become part of our leadership. Mm-hmm. And what we've seen in the last couple of years is we've seen our board actually obtain the similar diversity traits as our youth that are coming on board, and that's only a good thing.
Right.
So,
Very much so.
I can touch on that as well. I mean, I as well grew up in the 70s, 80s Boy Scout troop, the very traditional Tuesday night at the church. And to some extent, my son did as well. In Fairfield, Thursday nights, at the church. When I decided to get back involved in the community, and I'm thinking, okay, where do I want to volunteer my time? I think there's no better place for our youth than scouting. There's no extracurricular activity out there that provides everything that scouting provides. So if I talk about getting involved, coaching Little League or coaching football or joining some other, community group, even political or what have you, I kind of balanced them all out and said there's nothing like scouting. Scouting really, I think, is number one for the youth. And rather than get involved in my local troop, let me get involved at the council level so that I can be involved on a wider scale. And I think that our product is for everybody. Our core curriculum isn't just for the 10-year-old boy. It is from whenever they can join when they leave Cub Scouts all the way up. And it is boy, girl, and it does have that vast diversity. It doesn't matter who you are, you will enjoy scouting. Not every child can play football. They're just not athletic enough or fast enough or big enough. Not everybody can afford hockey. Not everybody can swing a baseball bat. Not everybody can dance. So a lot of these other extracurricular activities, even music, you've got to have some inherent talent to be somewhat successful at it. And the more successful you are at it, the happier you are. If you're not successful and you can't swing a bat, you're not going to be happy on Little League.
Right.
It's just, it's just human nature. Scouting, everybody can do it. Our product is for everybody. So I call it kind of going, wide and, horizontally and vertically. We talk about going horizontally, that's when you said it's picking up all the other community members, all the people as we talked about outside of Fairfield, going into Bridgeport, going into New Haven, building the Hispanic side of it, building the female base that we have, and then vertically, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, exploring, venturing, Sea Scouts. There's so much there is to get our hands around and so much product to offer the community that I felt that's something I wanted to be part of.
Before you make a comment, we did an earlier segment, Paul Lucas and I, talking about exploring and talking about career awareness, obviously. Bob works with Avangrid, and you just tonight said that we might have something, hopefully working on some kind of a partnership similar to what we're trying to do with the manufacturing sectors. So
Yeah, and Avangrid and UI have really been partnering with the Boy Scouts of America for over 100 years. Camp Sikorsky, that we run every year, originally was Camp UI and held at a UI facility in Stratford, partnered with Sikorsky and other businesses and giving scouts that chance to camp out and learn from line workers and learn from the first line folks at the utility companies. And those partnerships keep going because those companies, UI, Southern Connecticut Gas, are part of the community just like the Boy Scouts are. And that's the beauty of what scouting does. It's a big tent and it's a patchwork quilt of all of our different organizations, whether it's faith-based, community-based, background-based, like Mosaic and LEAD, that work with folks of all different backgrounds to bring scouting to them. I mean, this is the only program in the world that you could live in a high-rise building or on a farm and still be in this program and have opportunities to earn one of the most prestigious awards in America, being the Eagle Scout. And the litany of other awards and opportunities that we have through venturing and Sea Scouts and exploring as well. So
Absolutely.
it's such a unique opportunity.
So one of my jobs as commissioners is to be more visible, go to more activities, and what I saw at our council this summer, having the opportunity to go up to Sequoia, our premier camp every week, and talk to scout leaders and see a lot of different diversity, female, male, even Coach or Eric Brantley's group was up for a week from New Haven, and it was amazing to see these kids having such a great time. But in the same toll, we ran a 4-week camp at Hoyt for the Scout Reach program, and I went down a couple times, and I've never seen kids have so much fun being out in the woods, getting dirty, getting bit by mosquitoes, and still having a great time, and not worried. And they couldn't wait to come back the next day. They probably
If
slept
you
in-
watched an earlier segment, Mark said he would go down the 20-foot slide next year.
I'm going
Oh,
to
you're gonna
get
do
Eric
it?
to
I
go
wanna
down the
see
There you
driveway.
go.
No, Eric said he was not going down.
That'll be all right. That'll be a big wave. Yes.
Just to comment on the Scout Reach and the kids from New Haven that come to our camp is I had a chance to go up with Eric and some of the kids to Sequoia when they arrived, and it was some of their first time going into the woods. Mm-hmm. And this young man, I think he was 13 or 14 years old at the time, he ran into the pine grove at Sequoia and he hugged one particular tree. He dodged around other trees to get to this one tree and give it a big hug. And I said, what did you do that for? And he's like, this is my tree. I've seen this tree grow. I look up and I see it get bigger and bigger every year. I don't see trees like this where I'm from. I live in New Haven, and he says, we got these little trees that come out of the sidewalk. And he held his hand out, and they're about 5 inches wide.
Sure.
These are real trees. They're real big trees, and I want to cherish those while I'm here at camp. And that opened my eyes. Growing up in Orange, it's wooded.
Yeah.
But just 5-10 miles away, this kid doesn't really see nature, and scouting brings that to him every year.
Amazing.
I think that's really the interesting thing. I had a meeting with some folks in Bridgeport the other day, and I was talking about it's interesting in some of the towns, such as Bridgeport, you have such a dichotomy of neighborhoods, right? It's so close to each other, but one neighborhood you think, it's all inner city, and the next thing over, you've got $1 million homes over there, and it's just really interesting. You don't see a lot of that in areas I've been. I mean, this is probably the 5th different city I've lived in, and it's not always the case. And I think it makes it even more interesting, for us organizationally to be able to kind of pull all it together. And I think that's where a lot of these partnerships can come from, is when we figure out how to bring those two together and show what the benefit's going to be for everybody. And I think that's where it's really, really critical.
You bring up Bridgeport, and it makes me think of the sailing school, which you had an earlier segment with Paul. And what that has done for that community is amazing, because half of those 200 kids that come through, almost half, are on scholarship. And while Bridgeport sits on the water and there's 2 naturally deep harbors, and boating is all over the place with marinas that go out to the Long Island Sound, many of these kids never get to the waterfront, and more importantly, never get to swim and never get to sail.
Yeah.
So by being part of our sailing school, they get to, one, learn how to swim, join a team sport that's actually out on the water, and you saw by the video that you showed earlier on, have the time of their life.
Yeah.
And that's in their community, almost walkable for many of them, coming right down to the waterfront at Captain's Cove.
And when you mentioned that, I was amiss for not mentioning Captain's Cove as one of our partners. They
great
work
partner.
with us so well on not only the sailing school, but Sea Scout ships and other things. And the Williams family has been phenomenal down there helping us with all of that. So kudos to them. And if you get a chance, and I would invite anybody who wants to come down and take a look at the sailing school this summer. I think you'll be absolutely amazed at what's happening down there. And again, this is the one thing about scouting that I think amazes me, and it always has amazed me. And I was not a scout growing up, but it amazes me the fact that what the kids are learning, they don't even realize they're learning it because they're doing it in a way that they're having fun with it. And I think that's the difference. And you talk to parents after their kids have been in the program for a while, and they're just amazed. They're just amazed at the difference of how their kids have just developed. And I think that makes a big difference.
And when you invite them down to Captain's Cove and Bridgeport, they need to really, if they can, go in the office and give a shout out to Bruce Williams and his family, because 3 of our ships, which are like floating troops, and they include about 8 vessels just within those 3 ships, are really coddled and caretaken by Captain's Cove.
Yeah.
And then our fleet of 11 sailboats and fleet of 3 chase vessels, which are the power boats that go out there, and all the storage and our buildings, et cetera, are all underwritten by Captain's Cove. So we're just one of their 40-plus nonprofits that they work with, and so what a great place to be. So thanks for mentioning that.
And the other thing I think that's great about it is they're not only learning sailing, swimming, and going to a waterfront, an area that they normally wouldn't go to or haven't had the opportunity to go to, but they're building those peer relationships. So a lot of them, if they're not doing extracurricular at school, they may only believe it or not, just hang out with their siblings. Some don't have any friends.
Right.
Some have 1 or 2 friends, maybe from a sibling and a friend from school.
Yep.
When they join scouting, they're meeting other kids from their school, maybe that they never talked to in the hall, that now becomes their friend, or they meet a student from another school. And we see it down at the sailing school. We see it at Camp Sequoia and all of our camps. I mean, I'm amazed at the amount of bonding that goes on between these kids. And that's a huge part of it as well. Not just earning the merit badges, not just experiencing the outdoor, but for kids that are lonely or even kids that are popular, just to expand their peer group is huge for them from a maturity standpoint.
Yeah, I was having a conversation earlier with someone in between segments about how COVID's affected the kids and how a lot of the kids have lost socialization skills because they were, hemmed into they couldn't go anywhere. And I think the one thing that scouting does do is really provide those socialization skills that so many of the youth are lacking or have lost through the last few years of just dealing with the pandemic.
Right. There's I wouldn't say most, but a lot of our elementary schools in our state actually have these benches that are outside called buddy benches. And kids have been so isolated, they really haven't been doing a lot of interaction, as you mentioned, Nick. And when you sit down on this bench, that's a signal for other kids to sit down on the bench with you. And from a socialization, as you talked about, scouting,
It's huge.
wow, it's huge. It's huge. So hopefully one day we may not see these buddy benches that
won't
cropped
need
up
'em.
after
Well, I would
COVID,
say
yeah.
Camp
Well, it's
Sequas
not
is
only-
probably one big buddy
One
bench.
big buddy bench.
That's
Exactly.
what
Exactly.
it is, and it's not, and it's unfortunate. I don't think the buddy benches are going to go away because it's not only COVID; it's the cell phone usage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the kids having that cell phone. It used to be, I don't know, you used to buy a cell phone for when your child turned, say, 16 or something. Then it was like, never get a phone before they're 15. Then it was, oh, my kid needs a phone at 13. Now they're 10 years old. I think the elementary school kids probably have phones. And what they do once they get a phone, it's not a phone anymore. It's a path to the internet, and they all sit there. They do this. So it's unfortunate. That creates that loneliness that we take away when they go to camp. And we don't take their phones away at Sequoia. They just don't want them. They don't use them. I mean, the biggest smiles I see is at the waterfront. They're all jumping in the water, having a great time, you know, grabbing canoes, grabbing the kayaks, you know, doing their swimming. And you'll never see bigger smiles ever than going down to the waterfront like at Sequoia.
But you hit on something important there, is we teach young people how to be responsible, whether it's having a phone, when's the right time to use it,
Right.
leadership roles. I mean, these are kids who are 13, 14 years old, and they're out planning events. They're planning meals for the food. They're
True.
planning the
Yeah.
logistics. Stuff that there's 20, 30-year-olds who
Can't do it.
struggle to do that. You
Right.
see so many kids
Oh, yeah,
that
very
go
much so.
off on their own, and then they go back and live at home because they couldn't balance a checkbook. Not that they balance checkbooks anymore in this world, but they balance their finances, and they learn how to speak in front of groups in the workplace. We teach that at 13 years old. To become an Eagle Scout, you have to do that.
True.
But most kids don't have that awareness
Yeah.
anymore unless
Yeah.
they're in scouting.
When you go through, you bring up a great point, Bob. When you go through our merit badges,
Yeah.
those are all life skills.
Yeah.
I
Every
mean,
one of them.
I dare you to look at a curriculum in one of our high schools. And we got great high schools in Connecticut for financial planning,
Yeah.
and we offer that merit badge.
Personal
Citizenship,
It's required,
nation,
not even offered.
community,
Yeah.
state. I mean, amazing citizenship and civic courses that you actually get to take. Cooking.
Cooking.
Both of my kids, when they come home, I sit back. I'm on dishwashing duty, and they cook, and they learn in scouting.
Yeah,
Literally, they were on their own, meal planning, buying the ingredients, cooking it up. They didn't learn a lot about cleaning up because that's what I do, but they certainly did the prep and the
They
cooking.
learned. They
It's
just-
amazing.
they
But
sandbagged
you
it.
literally go through from life saving to first aid to swimming, et cetera, all the badges. It's
Yeah.
amazing how every one of those are nailed to a life skill.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, people think first aid with scouts, but they forget the cooking and the personal finance and the citizenship and the
Yeah.
community and so many aspects of
Public
it. that-
speaking.
that
My
public
goodness. Oh,
speaking's
my
a great
goodness.
one.
Yeah. When we
Yeah.
talk about like political apathy, people who don't vote, they don't get involved in government. To get Eagle Scout, a kid has to write a letter to their elected official or speak to an elected official. And we've heard from members of Congress. There's one in particular, Rosa DeLauro, who tries to go to every Eagle Court of Honor because she said she knows the impact that scouting has on
Yeah.
these young people.
Yeah.
And anytime a young person writes to her and invites her, she does her best to personally review the letter and sign the letter because she knows some kid put effort into that.
Right.
And she gets thousands of pieces of correspondence, but that rises to the top for folks like Rosa, Dick Blumenthal, and Murphy, who represent our folks here in Connecticut.
So going back to merit badges, one of the unique things they learned, all these skills that are valuable, but many scouts find their career opportunity.
Absolutely.
They take that
Not to
merit
mention the
badge and
trades.
They take
Absolutely.
fingerprinting, they want to join the FBI.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly,
It's,
or,
no, it's true, yeah. They touch upon something when they're 13, and that sends them off on a career path.
I mean, look
Very
around
much
this
so.
room. We talked about the volunteers who made this happen. A lot of them
Yeah.
Yep.
were exposed to communications and production through their involvement in scouting and the Order of the Arrow and NYLT. That exposed them to this field, and now look at the benefit that we have by raising products of the program.
Well, Gene, you made a career in education through the trades. And look at how many badges we actually have within the trade segments. Automotive.
Yeah.
Kids get to break down an engine, change the oil, things like that. Woodworking.
Yep.
Not getting in
You
school
name it.
anymore,
And,
these
and when they go up to
curriculums
Camp
either.
Sequoia, I would tell you that's probably one of the greatest aspect, secret aspect of Camp Sequoia is Jim's workshop, which is not, I'm not that Jim, I wish I was. But all kinds of woodworking and welding and you name it. Plumbing,
and
electrical,
yeah, it's
carpentry.
amazing.
It's just,
Yeah.
it's incredible
It's
what we
amazing.
teach up at summer camp.
Well, not just summer camp, but there's so many opportunities that there's now a scouting in the trades series of events that we're doing monthly.
Right.
And they said, oh, this will last a
Very
few
much so.
months. And then when they looked at the list of how many trade badges there are, they said, we can't get through these in a year, 2 years.
Right.
And they offer two in a month, a weekend. It's 1 day event, and the kids walk out with the badge if they do the prerequisites.
Well, you talked about UI and how important scouting and through an Explorer program, the potential of it will be United illuminating. But we've already demonstrated that in maritime. We've demonstrated that in aviation. The sky's the limit. When you look at some of our incredible trade schools, we have 17 of them that are just the trade schools, and they offer everything from culinary arts to information services, medical, you name the subject. There's like 30 different branches of subjects.
Yeah.
Every one of those could be an Explorer post or club, depending on the age of our individual to go through there. And imagine the apprenticeship opportunities for somebody like a UI, for somebody like a General Dynamics or Electric Boat. You get a high schooler that's actually going to apprentice maybe for the last 3 years of high school
That's kinda good.
with them. My gosh, they'll end up
CEO.
working in manufacturing, welding.
I mentioned
It's
in an earlier
unbelievable.
segment when we were talking about exploring that when I was in the Louisville, Kentucky Council, one of our board members, they built coal barges, and
Yep.
they couldn't find welders. And he said, if you can figure out a way for me to get welders, I'll hire every one of them and I'll train them. And it was $100,000 to start.
Yeah.
And they couldn't find people. I
And you
mean,
hear-
it's really crazy. And this was back in the mid 2000s.
You hear about the shortage of airline pilots, and we've talked about the exploring program that we had with Avello and East Hampton Middle School. I was catching up with, he's now an adult, but somebody that was in my troop growing up. He's a little younger than me. He's a pilot for American Airlines, and I said, that's great, that's awesome. He said, the only reason I would have ever thought of this is the aviation merit badge when we were in Scouts.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
example. That's what I mean. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. It touches a lot of kids end up following that career path because
So-
it touches on something they don't get in school, or they
Yeah.
might not see at home, or they don't get in their community. And it could be aviation, it could be art, it could be music. It could
When you
be,
think about it, there's over 140
yeah, it's
categories to
everything. Yeah,
explore.
you go on and on and on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question about where do you see the biggest challenge for us moving forward?
In a value proposition to actually get through the clutter. I mean, we're trying to really, in most cases, you're talking with a parent, especially in family scouting, Cub Scouts. And, when I grew up, it was church basketball. It was literally, Little League was one aspect, but mostly it was pick up a ball, somebody's got a bat, somebody's got a glove, and the fields were wide open. They weren't taken. You went there and you played for the
Oh, yeah,
afternoon.
that's true.
It was wide
Can't
open,
get
so
them
your
out.
choices were 3 or 4 in a pie, of a sliced pie. And scouting was one of the biggest pieces of pie to jump right into. And today, if you look at a pie chart, there might be 200 or more different slices of opportunities that somebody of our age group, K through 12, can do and enjoy. And to further exacerbate that is most of those pie slices will say, if you're going to be good in this pie slice, you have to do it year round. So no longer can you play football, basketball, baseball. You want to play football, you're going to do it in the fall, the winter, the spring, the summer. You're going to do it year round. So, my gosh, we have got to tell our story in a very cohesive soundbite to raise through that clutter to say we're the only one of all those slices that can totally prepare your youth for life. And look at these skills that they'll come out with. Look at the self-confidence. Look at the morality, look at the family-based partnership. I mean, you name it, the community aspect of it. Whatever acronyms and words you want to throw in there, you've got that. The team, the cohesiveness with scouting. And that, in a soundbite, we have got to get across. And I'd say that's one of our biggest challenges because we have the answers and the solutions. We just got to
Yeah.
raise our voices to get through.
I agree. We have the better product, as I talked about before. And I think we have the better product for lots of reasons, and it is wide. Because, as we mentioned, all those merit badges. But when you talk about the morality and the leadership and the community and the bonding that these kids have, they're life skills that you're never going to lose. No one can take them away from you, and you can always utilize them. And we're really competing with, I think, the number one competition we're competing against is sports. at this level for these children. And I think it goes back when it started to change, and I think the pendulum swung a little bit, is when, Andre Agassi first was, a huge tennis star, and it started out because he had a tennis racket at 3. And if you just played tennis, you become rich and famous. And, it was the same thing with Tiger. Tiger played at 4, and look, he's going to be a billionaire. If you get your child into sports, they're going to be billionaires. And it's just a falsehood. It's a pipe dream. And so many people, that became, for some reason, so gigantic and so big, and so many parents thought, I'm going to sign my kid up for whatever sport, XYZ, at 4 years old. That's what they're going to do. As you mentioned, the coaches got a hold of that, and the coaches are like, oh, I got a great idea. I coach football at the high school, but I'm going to have a football camp over Christmas. And I'm going to have weight training in the spring, and I'm at football camp in the summer. And you got to come to my camps, or you can't be on my team in the fall. And then it just kind of snowballed to all these kids being involved in these sports. Mm-hmm. The coaches pulling them in, and then they don't have time. I don't have time for scouting. I don't have time to go to church anymore. I don't have time to talk to my sister. I'm just going to play golf and get rich. And we've got to turn that around and say, that's not the path to success in life.
Right.
A lot of it's the scouting and sports, scouting and drama, theater,
right.
whatever.
Absolutely.
That's a good point. We're not saying don't do those things.
Right.
You want to be well-rounded.
It's an
Right.
and.
We
That's
fit into that pie because we're the only organization that you can play football and be part of that program and do
Absolutely.
dance and golf and whatever else you want to do. But we have to look at ourselves and we have to be able to say we're flexible and willing to work with the young man who wants to play football or the young woman who wants to play golf and do that and scouting and make sure we can make scouting make accommodations to them so they can still get the camping nights and get the merit badges and the requirements, but also succeed in those other interests that they have. And that's something that we have to really look inward at ourselves to make sure we can do that.
Right.
True.
We're competing with them for time. We're not competing against them. I think you're right. It's a balance. You're still a student. You're still a student athlete. You can be all that. You can be a student athlete, and be in scouting. It's not one or the other.
Yeah, you look at one of the folks who just raced in the Daytona 500. I think he actually won it.
Yes,
He's
he
an
won.
Eagle Scout.
He's an Eagle Scout.
And he did racing and he did all of that while he was in scouting. Obviously, you don't just get in the car and start driving the Daytona 500. He'd been in that for years. He went to scouting events and racing, and it's a lot of work.
It is.
But
It is.
if you're willing to put into it, but the challenge is time too. That's the only commodity we can't make more of, and we're not going to preach on that, but it's making scouting available to the parents too,
You're right.
so that way they can fit in.
Gene, what do you think is the biggest challenge we're facing?
Well, it's still on the same lines. I coached 40 years cross country and track, and I have many runners of mine are Eagle Scouts from Bethel and Shelton, things like that. But the difference is that a good coach will see that
It's better to have them.
it's better to work with scouting rather than against scouting. And I would just tell the boys, if we don't have a Saturday meet, you're on your own for practice. We'll run easy on there, because I'll probably see you on the trail myself going out there. Because they go, we don't have a meet this weekend. Can we go camping? Yeah, go camping. I'll see you out there somewhere.
Yeah.
And I said, these skills and these opportunities are far and few.
Yeah.
So you can't just demand, you got to run, every day.
Absolutely.
You got to do this. You got to let them grow up. And let
I
them
wish
be-
more coaches were like you, though, Gene.
Well, me too.
And you had Eric Brantley on a few times earlier. We call him coach because he was a coach,
Right.
and he
Correct.
saw that
Still
value.
coaching.
He's still
coaching.
coaching.
And he saw how scouting and football fit in together. That's why he's been so successful in New Haven. He treats it like that team mentality.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it goes the same thing in the classroom too. Being
Do all the benefits of being in scouting transition to the classroom?
Yeah,
Well,
leadership, right. I mean, not transfer to the team too.
Right.
Who doesn't want a football player or a basketball player or what have you? That's not a leader. That's not a team player.
Yeah.
Scouting teaches all that,
Correct.
all the same skills that a coach really wants in a player. They don't just want the athleticism. They want the good attitude. They want the kid who's healthy and happy and he's got his head on his shoulders and that's well-rounded. And he's a team player and he's a captain of the team.
Right.
Not just the one
Very
who
much so.
can only play football.
Yeah, in one of your earlier segments, you had said a couple of acronyms were mentioned, NYLT, and that's a leadership training for our
is.
youth.
Yeah.
I mean, where else what other organization would actually have leadership training for young folks?
Yeah. When I went off
And
to college,
scouting.
I had to take an intro to leadership course, and I'm sitting through it, and I realized this is the same thing as the National Leadership Seminar the OA offers.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And I compared the syllabus from when I took that a year earlier to the textbook. The same people wrote it. So these young people are getting a college course, whether it's through NYLT
Yeah,
or the NLS that the OA offers, for free, generally.
Yeah, very, very true.
So not my biggest concern, but I think we still need to keep going forward, keep offering the opportunities for every scout out there.
Well, and to do that, you're right. To do that, though, it's going to take finances. And one of the biggest things that we know going into this year is that we can bring as many kids as we want into the program. The problem is for those kids that are mostly scholarship, how do we pay for that? So a lot of
Use
that
the
is
word
going to
sustainability.
sustainability, exactly. So part of this was all about that,
Yeah.
as far as sponsoring a youth. But I would ask that if you get an opportunity, we're not cutting the funding off tonight. If you get an opportunity to watch some of the segments, they're all recorded. You can see them all on Facebook Live, and take a look at them. And if you're inclined, make a donation and help us out with that, because we don't want to limit our ability to serve these youth, and we're only limited by our financial resources. So I would ask that you consider that. These guys thought we wouldn't be able to cover an hour. I think we're pretty close to covering that hour, and so we're going to wrap it up. But thank you all for giving us part of your day today. It has been a long day. We're going to do our drawing. Karen, come on up. Oh yeah, come on up, Karen.
Oh,
So this is for the raffle basket.
wait a minute. Is it too late to get another credit card in there?
Wait a second. You missed the drawing.
I missed the drawing. That's all
And-
right.
Thompson Gary.
Ooh.
All
Thompson
right.
Gary.
And we just, so we did hit 30%, which means 30 youth have been sponsored as of so far today.
All right.
Right.
And I want to thank John Hanks. John made an additional gift. He made one earlier today, called in another gift this evening. So thank you, John, for that. And again, if you want to do something in honor of Ranger Dave up at Sequoia, please do that. As I said, he's been there 25 years this year, and what a great way to honor him and do something positive to impact the community. So thank you all. Hope you have a great rest of the evening.
You too.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.